numbers. I like this one because it's symmetrical, but I think it's approximately true. And that 95% is going to have to get allocated to crypto. They're going to have to. They're going to have to convince the 95% of the Bitcoin that's already owned to shake loose some Bitcoin or shake loose some crypto. And it's pretty exciting. So that's where that tweet came from re-underwriting the space and coming out the other side even more bullish than I was before.
So I was just going to ask, is that how you came out? Because I have the same feeling right now where I keep checking myself, and same with our team. It's like, can we be this bullish? Are we missing something?
Yes. Yeah, I did come out more bullish. I think it's really important to do that. I mean, I went back, I looked at, in Bitcoin specifically, how much Bitcoin are ETFs going to buy? How much are corporations going to buy? How much are governments going to buy? Where is the sale process going to come from? And in broader crypto, is the growth of throughput real? Are there really interesting real world games and applications being built? And I just kept coming up with yes. So yeah, I exited even more bullish. I loved 2024. What an incredible year. But I think 2025 may actually be even more exciting. Mm-hmm. The first is, I've spent a lot of time on the past few days digging into the layer 2 space and particularly into the sort of the Starknet validity proof side of that spectrum. And it's getting really fast and really efficient. So I really do think we're solving ETH throughput challenge. And then on the flip side, one of my core beliefs for next year is we're going to see Wall Street come into crypto in a major way. Through stable coins, through tokenization projects, the most of that's going to come into ETH. So you have improving technology, and then you have a series of headlines: ETH, 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 ETH in Goldman Sachs, ETH in JP Morgan, ETH in UBS. And I think that's going to be enough to get it out of the doldrums, right? Will it outperform other sort of altcoins, if you want to call them that? I'm not sure. But can it get back to new all-time highs? I think absolutely.
Right. But when you think about it, like 5,000, just getting to all-time highs is pretty bearish for ETH when we're going into a year where it feels like all the stars are aligned.
ETH, because it does have this fundamental building block. We get a lot of questions that skip straight to Solana.
Really?
I think there's an aspect of the institutional investor who crosses the chasm into crypto, into Bitcoin, and then wants to be kind of cool. And it's not that cool to be Bitcoin and ETH. It's like, let's go to what's next. Oh, this Solana thing, Phoenix out of the ashes of FTX. So we actually do get a fair number of questions about Solana. And I find that surprising, but it is a very real thing.
When you look more long-term, I'm starting to develop this thesis that and I think a lot of people have been feeling this for a while, that ETH just might not get the pump that a lot of other tokens are going to get in this cycle. And a lot of that is narrative based, for better or for worse. But do you think that long-term, do you still believe in ETH? Because my thesis is that maybe it skips ETH, but that ETH still has all these fundamentals, and that it's the next
$1 billion, the most ever of any ETF. And I think there's this assumption that there is this pent-up demand, and it's now been taken care of, and now we're going to see like a few $1 billion. But there's no reason to assume this is true. Let me give you the counterfactuals. The first is that in ETF land, year one is always the slowest. If you look at any ETF, it grows the most in year one, or it goes a little bit in year one, and year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 grow substantially beyond that. That's what happened with gold. What's happened with almost every ETF ever. So that's a big piece of it. The second counterfactual is that the Bitcoin ETFs aren't even approved on the largest wealth management platforms. They have partial approval on Morgan Stanley. They're not yet approved on Wells Fargo or UBS or others. There's trillions of dollars that can't even buy them yet. And then the third is that, look, institutions just move slow. So far, many of the adopters of crypto ETPs have been retail, and I think institutions are starting to come up. You have to assume that the election accelerated that dramatically. We're going to get new leadership at the SEC. They're going to be more accommodative. It's impossible to forecast, but we wouldn't have filed if we didn't think we could win approval, right? It takes money and time and effort. So you can read through that we're excited about it. And I think there'll be substantial demand. Like we discussed, people ask us about Solana all the time. It's got a very strong thesis and strong resonance out there in the investor community.
Explain something to me. So I believe VanEck was the first to file for the Solana ETF, and there is a deadline in January or February for their ETF. Does that impact that it has to be approved or not approved at that point? Is that deadline? Is there any date like that in the calendar that we should all be watching?
Yeah. So the way these, I don't remember exactly what happened with the VanEck filing, if they pulled it and then refiled. So I'm not
maybe
sure.
They did pull it. You might be right.
I think they may have. Matters because there's something like $8 trillion in 401k plans, which can't currently access crypto. And additionally, every month, millions of Americans save money into their 401k plans. I would love a portion of that to come into the crypto market. I would love it because I believe in crypto's ability to improve the long-term returns of diversified portfolios. And I would love it because it would give a persistent bid to these assets and actually contribute to reducing the volatility of the space. So will it happen? I don't know, but I would love to see it happen. And I think it might. And I think if it does, I actually think it's a pretty big deal for crypto.
No kidding. If there's $8 trillion in 401ks, any estimates on your end and models that you've done on what, if let's say this did move forward, what percentage could we expect? 1% or 3% to go to Bitcoin or to go to crypto in general?
Yes. I mean, the base case that I use in this killer app, they're a US bank account and a US financial quality ecosystem everywhere in the world at the push of a button, right? I mean, that is just amazing. And you can see the sort of early adopters doing it. You can look into countries with high inflation rates, see the stablecoin adoption there. You can look into regions with difficult B2B payment networks like sub-Saharan Africa, and you can see what Yellow Card is doing there, right? The proof is in the pudding. It's not speculative use. This is, end real world use. Yeah, it's a multi-trillion-dollar space if the regulators don't muck it up.
Let's hope not. Okay, yeah. Your next prediction for 2025.
Yeah, we think there'll be another mainstream crypto application that sort of crosses the chasm and gains more than 1 million monthly users. I personally think it's likely to be in the gaming space. I think you're seeing a lot of investment. You're seeing a lot of big names, right? I saw a headline just a few days ago about FIFA and Mythical Games.
To know that they're using crypto. They don't even necessarily like the language around crypto. They have a stain about that. So I think we're now at a point where you can use these games and you won't even know it's on chain. You won't even know it's crypto. It'll just be a different way to own and buy and sell and trade assets, which you might favor because maybe there's lower fees, or maybe you make more, or maybe it's more liquid because there's a bigger marketplace that's offered to you that wasn't previously there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That abstraction had to happen in order to get the adoption. And I do think we're there. I think if people have played around with these things, they're pretty cool, they're pretty easy, they're pretty fun. And that's exciting.
Okay, Matt, final prediction for 2025.
Yeah, this ties back to that first prediction. It's that governments, corporations, and ETFs will purchase more than 1 million Bitcoin in 2025. We talked about looking at, why will Bitcoin go to 200,000? I talked about re-underwriting my thesis in the space. As I look at these three, so I don't think we've repealed the cycle. Will it be 4 years is a good question. I think that's incidental. I don't think there's no, I have low confidence that it will be precisely 4 years. But do I think there'll be a 30+% pullback sometime in the next couple of years? Absolutely. A 50% plus pullback? Possibly. Right. So I think that will still happen. I do think it'll be diminished. I think it'll be diminished because there are many more actors in the crypto market. There's a lot of money that needs to come into this space. And we've sort of repealed the chance of it going to zero. So I think part of the reason it pulled back so far is that a lot of people were worried, well, maybe it'll go to zero. And so they didn't step in when the market pulled back. I think that's over. So I would say we'll still have a cycle. Whether it's 4 or 5 years, I don't know. And I think it'll be less pronounced than in the past. But, we haven't repealed bear markets.
Yeah.
We're going to get that.
And I want to be clear, when you say we could see a 30 to 50% pullback, you mean Bitcoin, right?